Well, good morning, everyone. Had a pretty early start this morning and left camp under headlamp and hiked into the canyon because this area back behind me here with this big white rock here and then the meandering sandstone of the canyon there. I know that it lights up pretty nice a little after sunrise. There's this big wall up here which catches a lot of the morning sunlight, and it really has this nice warm backlighting to the scene. So the light is relatively flat right now, but give it some time and there's going to be some pretty nice light here. I have 2 sheets of film left, I should say 2 sheets of Provia left, and I have 2 potential subjects today. But beyond that, I was originally planning to spend one more night down here in this canyon, but my fuel canister for my stove is actually quite low, so I have enough for probably one more meal. So after hopefully shooting this photo and then perhaps checking out the other scene to see at least how it looks, I'm gonna head back to camp, get things packed up, and then head back to the trailhead. I have more fuel in my truck up there, and that can move on to some of the other locations that I have planned. But I have some time to kill here, and skies are blue, wind is calm, and looking forward to seeing how this one turns out. All right, so that was 4 seconds at f45, and the light is hitting the cliffs up there in the background, and it's sending some nice warm backlighting into the foreground. And I have one more sheet of Provia, but I don't think I need it on this scene. And there's another subject a little ways up the canyon that I was hoping to check out this morning, but I think it actually might be a little too late for that. So I'll have to save that one for next year. But I'm gonna get things packed up. I'm gonna head back to camp, get camp packed up, possibly make some breakfast, and then head on back to the trailhead. So it's gonna be a pretty long hike to get back to the trailhead, but it'll be quite nice on a nice warm spring day. But this has been an absolute joy, and we'll see what else I can find in the next portion of this trip. Well, the timing worked out pretty well. I was hiking out of the canyon this morning. I didn't really record any video along the way, but it was blue skies. And then there was just this little bit of wind, one little cloud that appeared. And then it got really, really windy. So I got back to my car, drove over to an area where I have cell reception, and loaded some film in. Now we have a full-on dust storm. So yeah, I'm glad I hiked out there when I did, but tomorrow should be very clear, and I think all these clouds that are wind-driven clouds will go away by then. So my plan is to head to a different trailhead, which gets me to the same general area, but it's accessed from basically the other side of the formation. And I'll see about hiking in there to see what I can find. But man, this is quite the dust storm. Well, it's a little after 10 in the morning, and I've arrived at the trailhead and have started my hike to my next location on this trip. I gotta say, this is an incredibly beautiful trailhead. There's this really beautiful green sediment here set against all the orange sandstone. And my hike is gonna be about 5 miles or so. And it's gonna be pretty wide open like this for a while, but eventually the canyon walls will close in, and I'll have a campsite near a river for access to water. But I've got about 3 liters of water with me, and I've got supplies for probably about 3 days, maybe a little bit more, though I doubt I'll be there that long. I'm thinking maybe 2 nights. But this is a brand new canyon, never been here before, and the area where I'm going to be camping is only about 5 miles from where I was camping yesterday. But to access the area where I am now, going those 5 miles would have been a bit of a challenge, I guess you'd say. A lot of bushwhacking and route finding, and so here I'm able to drive around to the other side of this formation and then access it from this side where it's a pretty easy hike in. And definitely much different scenery over here. But I'm looking forward to what I'll find. See if I can find some cool subjects. I'm looking forward to enjoying some solitude down here in the canyons. Absolutely beautiful day. Well, I've gone a couple miles so far, and this is an absolutely beautiful canyon. The walls are closing in. and just the color of the sandstone is so rich and there's so much texture. There's birds flying along the cliffs. And then there are these bushes. I don't see any surrounding me right now, but they have these emerald green leaves, these really little leaves. And these tiny yellow flowers are just incredibly fragrant. So that smell is drifting through the air. And I'm probably about halfway to where I'm going to be camping for the night. But at any point along this hike, there is beauty everywhere. So much potential. It'll be tough to figure out what it is I want to shoot just because there's so much here. And to think that I have this all to myself. There's not another person around for miles. My truck is the only one at the trailhead. Absolutely gorgeous. Well, I went ahead and set up my campsite. It's absolutely beautiful here. It's big cottonwood trees, blue sky overhead, and I'm right along the river, so I have the white noise of the river, the sound of the wind going through the cottonwood leaves, and also cattle, because there's cows here. But it was quite the hike in. Very, very scenic the entire way, and it started out being very deserty, very rough, but with beautiful cliffs, and then these boulders from the sandstone cliffs that fell to the base and crumbled, and it was just a very gradual downhill all the way in. But then there's an area with a resistant layer of stone that had this really interesting kind of greenish, purplish, splotchy look to it. And I think any sort of groundwater hits that and then comes up as a spring. And so there's these areas with these beautiful cottonwood trees that thrive in areas where there's lots of water. And then I came down here to the campsite. It was 17,000 steps to get here, so it was definitely a bit of a hike, but pretty easy going in terms of just a slight gradual downhill the whole way in. The only issue though is that the subjects I found that I think are going to be really interesting to photograph, they're located about 2 miles up canyon. So this is where I'll be camping because I have access to water, nice open vistas, which kind of makes for a nice campsite. But then to do any photography, I'm going to head up the canyon again and then see about photographing some of those trees. But absolutely beautiful here, being serenaded by cows. And I'm going to get myself some lunch, do a little exploring a bit, and get to know this place. Well, I made myself some lunch and got camp set up and then headed up the canyon just to check things out. It's interesting because there's so many familiar elements from the other canyon I visited earlier in this trip, in terms of the cottonwood trees and the plants and stuff. But the sandstone here is different. It's layered, a bit like a very elaborate cake. And it's also more of a kind of a deep, rusty red color than the other canyon. But I already found several subjects that intrigued me, and it's a little bit windy right now, but hopefully that'll settle down a little bit as we get closer to evening. But I found a really cool subject that's pretty close to my camp, just a few bends down the canyon. So my goal is to see about shooting that. It's this really cool cottonwood tree and these big round boulders in front of it. But I'll certainly need it to be very calm, because I'd prefer to get a photo when the leaves are nice and frozen, but we'll see on that. I think tomorrow morning I'm gonna head a couple miles up the canyon, because over there the cottonwood trees are growing on one side of the wash as opposed to the other side of the wash. And that side of the wash is better for morning photos. So I think the plan will be to see if we can find something to shoot today, and then head over there, check out those cottonwoods that are a few miles up the canyon. It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. Well, it's going on 6 o'clock, and I went ahead and set up a composition. See my camera right there. Got my 240mm lens on there, and the subject is back over here. We have this really cool cottonwood tree, 3 primary trunks. There's a big boulder here that's pretty round, another big boulder here, and I'm just framing a composition right between it. But I'm not sure it's going to happen. In order to shoot this, I really need to have no clouds in the sky, and I need to have calm wind. And right now the wind has its moments, as it is right now, but the bigger issue is that there is some high clouds moving in from the west, and so it's making a really milky sky, which just kills the light. There's a big cliff face up over that way, which in the evening will catch light and then send it down in here, and I suspect that the conditions just aren't going to be right for this photo today, but it's close to camp and it's something I can shoot tomorrow. But in any case, I'm going to sit on this scene because I have about an hour or so until there's a pretty good window of light. So we'll see what happens. But in any case, I'm really looking forward to a good night's sleep tonight. Man, my legs are getting sore. I was able to expose a single sheet of Provia on the scene there, and I used a warming filter to help warm things up a little bit. And the light isn't quite ideal. The sky is a little milky out to the west, which is sending some neutral light into the scene. Otherwise, if those clouds weren't there, it'd be the warm light coming from this huge amphitheater of sandstone cliffs back behind the video camera, which is sending warm light into the scene. But at least I had a moment when the wind was relatively calm with decent light. I was able to expose one sheet of film. I have 8 sheets of Pro V with me, so I have 7 sheets left. But now it'll be time to head back to camp, get some dinner, get some sleep, and see about some morning photos. Typically here, the skies are mostly free of clouds in the morning and the wind is calm in the morning. And there are some really beautiful cottonwoods I found earlier today, which I like to go and see if I can find some compositions on them. But it feels great to expose some film. Now it's back to camp.
I felt at peace with my surroundings as I returned to camp that evening, and this came as somewhat of a surprise, to be perfectly honest. It often takes several visits for me to feel at ease with a new location, but there was something about this canyon that felt both welcoming and reassuring. In many ways, this might seem strange given the conditions that evening. The flat light and relentless wind would almost certainly spoil my photo. But perhaps that's the very reason I felt at peace. With the veil of perfection lifted, I was able to better enjoy the experience and take time getting to know this new canyon. Of the 2 photos I shot over the course of those 2 days, I can't say I'm incredibly satisfied with either of them. I wish my lens was wider to include more of the side walls in this first photo. But with harsh sunlight just out of frame, I'm not sure that was possible. I'll have to sit on this one for a while and see how my perception changes with time. As expected, the second photo suffers both wind movement and flat lighting, but I thoroughly enjoy this composition. The rounded boulders beautifully frame the young cottonwood tree, and the layered sandstone makes for an interesting background. I plan to revisit this subject on a future visit, hopefully when the conditions are more conducive for photography. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you around next time. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. For more information on how to support me and my work, please visit the donation section of my website at benhorne.com/donate. I also have prints in my portfolio box set available on my website. You can find a direct link down below in the show notes. Thanks in advance for your support.